What happened, Goku? Impossible.
He's dead.
Why'd you have to do it? Why do you have to leave me? It's not fair.
Dragon Ball, a series that is mostly known for its epic fighting, its goofy sense of humor, and overall light-hearted tone. But seldom do people think about sad moments, and for a good reason. Dragon Ball doesn't lend itself to being a very sad series. Even though there are not a lot of sad moments in Dragon Ball, they are there, even though they are far and in between. But I do think that they help contrast the plot emotionally from what we're used to seeing, because usually when some of these sad moments occur, it's a stark contrast to what everything else is going on emotionally in the tone of the story. And it definitely helps with pacing, I think. That's why I'm going to talk about some of the saddest moments in Dragon Ball, because I don't think they're well known. It's not a topic that is talked about a lot. I guess for good reason. Dragon Ball is not a very sad series, but I do think that some of these sad moments are some of the most memorable moments in all of Dragon Ball. I will have to say though that this is a very subjective list, and of course it's going to be my opinion. This is how I felt as when I watched these moments. Of course, anyone else could have felt differently. And I will say that most of these moments do involve the death of characters. I did not want to limit it to just death of characters. I realized that a lot of them are death of characters, but I couldn't do anything about that. That's just the nature of Dragon Ball. But without further ado, this is Blackenfist's Top 10 Sad Moments in Dragon Ball. Coming in at number 10.
Krillin, no!
Krillin!
Frieza, stop this!
Number 10. The Death of Krillin by Frieza. Frieza, presumably dead from taking an enormous spirit bomb from Goku, not only comes back but takes the life of Goku's best friend Krillin. Not only does Frieza take Krillin's life, but he also severely injures Piccolo. This is one of the more unexpected moments on the entire list, which is why I put it on here. Try to imagine yourself that you're reading this or watching this for the first time. It's not only a really unexpected surprise to find out that Frieza survived a spirit bomb attack of that magnitude, but in classic Toriyama fashion, something unexpected and revealing happens that severely injures Piccolo and takes the life of Goku's best friend. Of course, this moment also helps catapult Goku to the legendary status of Super Saiyan, and his emotions of seeing his best friend die right in front of him definitely is a big motivator for him transforming. However, I still put this on the bottom of the list because the emotional tone definitely changes after Goku has transformed into a Super Saiyan, and Krillin's death, let's be honest, is overshadowed by his transformation. So it's definitely not the focus of the scene for long, and this is why I put it on the lower part of this list. It's mostly highlighting Goku's reaction, his emotional reaction to his best friend's death. Number 9.
Listen, there's not much time left, and I can only think of one way to save the Earth now.
What are you talking about?
No, don't. I think I know what you have planned, Goku. You don't have to do this. Goodbye, friends.
Number 9. Goku's sacrifice. This is definitely one of Goku's saddest and most heroic feats that he has ever done. It really does show the great lengths that Goku is willing to go to protect everyone and the Earth. With Cell clearly being overpowered by Gohan and outmatched and no longer able to win the fight, he yet now goes and resorts to his trump card, which is essentially self-destruction, bringing along everyone and the Earth with it. Goku, being the pure-hearted fellow that he is, and in the possession of the instant transmission technique, realized the only way to save the Earth is to transport Cell away to the King Kai's planet, thereby sacrificing himself for everyone. I definitely think that this is one of Goku's most selfless acts in the entire series. And if you look at this through the perspective of Gohan, it is kind of tragic considering the fact that Gohan did have the power to stop Cell before any of this would happen. But Gohan unfortunately let his own strength get to his head and ended up costing him dearly after that, considering the fact that he lost his father because of his own arrogance. And that is why I put this on here. The sheer selflessness of Goku is definitely one of the most character-defining moments for Goku, with also the tragic angle of his son Gohan, who let his own strength get to his head, costing him dearly, and I'm pretty sure affecting his character and personality, especially with battle, for the rest of his life. I think this is one of those moments that explains a lot of what happens to Gohan after this moment. Coming in at number 8.
Gohan, 俺の好きだった自然や動物たちを守ってやってくれ。頼んだぞ。
Number 8. The death of Android 16. I feel that this is a somewhat overlooked moment, in terms of a sad moment, that is. Of course, this is a very famous moment from the Dragon Ball series, but I think not many people look at this as a sad moment. And obviously, it's because Gohan transforms into a Super Saiyan 2, and that's supposed to be awesome. But it took me a long time before I really looked at this through the lens of a sad moment, and it only happened in the past couple years of watching Dragon Ball. If you really examine this, this moment has a lot of parallels with spot number 10, the death of Krillin. In both of these moments, there are characters that die and they bring emotional distraught to the hero, which then receives a enormous transformation because of that. But I feel that here it is presented and executed much better, because even though the focus is still very much on the hero and his reaction to what just happened. I just love the things that Android 16 says here to Gohan right before Gohan actually transforms. This, I think, is one of the things that just cements on how cruel Cell can be. I mean, this is one of those cruel defining moments for Cell when he just crushes Android 16's head and you just see Gohan in shock. And I'll have to say bluntly that the Japanese dub is much better at conveying the sadness of this moment. It's one of the reasons why it took me so long to see how sad this moment was. It is much better in the Japanese dub in terms of how sad the moment is. To me, it's just the silence of Gohan after that, and just the sheer silence spoke a lot more than what they put into the dub. Don't get me wrong here, I love the dub, especially that track that played for Android 16. That's actually one of my favorite tracks from the dub. However, I still like the insert song, Day of Fate, Soul vs. Soul, much better for this scene. But for what really seals the deal for me is that after Cell has done displaying his cruelty, Gohan has tears in his eyes after he has just transformed and received incredible power, and as he's getting serious, the tears just fade away and he just gives Cell that awesome stare to tell him that things are about to go down. Number 7.
Piccolo?
It's okay, kid. No sweat.
Number 7. The Death of Piccolo. Gohan, facing Nappa's deadly blast, facing certain death. But at the very last moment, Piccolo intervenes, saving the boy's life. This has to be Piccolo's most character-defining moment in the entire series. And I don't say that lightly. The way I see it, this is the moment where you are sure that Piccolo is no longer evil. If you think about it, but all before this, Piccolo has been on the fence, or he has been evil. He has only been aiding the good guys, per se, because of desperation. And even though we saw hints with the training sequences with Gohan that Piccolo might have been changing and having a change of heart, we couldn't be sure until he laid it out all on the line for Gohan, and then we could be certain that Piccolo was no longer evil and that he truly did have a change of heart for the rest of the series to come. Gohan is also very much changed by all this. Piccolo is his first teacher in martial arts, and for the rest of his life, Gohan always treasures that. It's obvious that not only just Piccolo formed a bond, but also Gohan with Mr. Piccolo, as we see throughout the rest of the series. And it is very solidified in this moment when Piccolo sacrifices himself for Gohan, and you see the torment that Gohan goes through after this. Up next, number 6.
You are a fool! I am going to crush you! and throw you into the wind! Trunks, Bulma, I do this for you. And yes, even for you, Kakarot.
Number 6. Vegeta's Final Atonement. This is quite possibly Vegeta's most noble and heroic moment in the entire series. And coming from a character like Vegeta, which isn't neither of those things throughout most of the series, that's pretty big. A lot of fans will also be tempted to put this at number 1, and many people would say that this is the number 1 moment. And while I don't think that this moment is really top 1 material, I do understand where they're coming from. Now, what really makes this moment for me is not really the actual act that Vegeta does, sacrificing himself for Boo. While that was sad, what really makes it for me was the interaction that he had with his son Trunks right before this. And this is fully making it clear that this is the first time Vegeta is fighting for someone other than himself and not his own personal ambitions, mainly to be stronger. I also like the conversation, although it was brief, with Piccolo, knowing that Vegeta was going to sacrifice his own life, and knowing that Vegeta, because of the life that he has lived, is not going to be rewarded with anything. Despite having no reward, Vegeta still goes through with it, and even though he will not gain anything from this, he still goes through with the deed because he cares about the people in his life. Vegeta can be a real scumbag at times, making it a little hard for me to feel sorry for him, to feel sad for him. But it's times like this when he finally puts his own desires and his own things that he has been working for himself for his whole life, his own strength and his own pride, and he puts it aside to protect things that are a little bit more important. We've made it to the halfway point. We're approaching top 5 territory now. Coming up next, number 5.
Alright then, if it's a fight you want, so be it.
No! Cargo!
Number 5. Frieza's cruelty towards the Namex. Well, this is an unusual spot, mainly because this doesn't involve the death of a single character, but I also like it a little bit because of that. I always felt that Frieza was the most cruel and inhumane villain in the entire Dragon Ball series, and out of all the villains. And it's definitely on full display here. Although Frieza himself is not committing the acts and instead ordering his henchmen to do them for him, you definitely see how much he enjoys to see the suffering of others and how inhumane he can be towards other people. The suffering of the Namex in this spot is really what makes it the most sad because of just its cruelty. Frieza, trying to get information about the Dragon Balls from the Namex, tells them that he will not hurt them as long as he the Namex tell exactly what Frieza wants. The cruelty of Frieza is really shown because he even admits that even if the Namex had done what he wanted, he was going to kill them anyway, probably because of his own sick pleasure. The sheer defenselessness and powerlessness of the Namex also really gets to me. This also shows how much of a monster Frieza really is, and it definitely helps with introducing this character. My favorite part of the moment was definitely when the old Namekian destroyed the Scouters so that other Namekian villages won't have to suffer the same fate that he had to. Of course, this ticked off Frieza big time, and then tried to force the old Namek to tell him where the rest of the villages were. The old Namek completely refused and ensured his death at the hands of Frieza and his henchmen, but regardless, he did not want to be the cause of any other Namek suffering from Frieza. And he got a death that was pretty savage for Dragon Ball standards. Up next, number 4.
Here, have your spear.
Number 4. The Death of Bora. Well, this is the personal spot for me. And what I mean by that is that I don't see a lot of other people putting this moment on their top 10 Dragon Ball saddest moments list. And that's understandable. Bora is not a main character. I do believe that he only appeared for about 2-3 episodes until he died. However, this one really does hold a special place in my heart. I have talked about the role music has played in the moments previous to this one, but if there's one spot where the music played the biggest role in my judgment, it would have to be this one. Shinsuke Kenkuchi produced one of the best tracks in the entire Dragon Ball soundtrack, definitely one of my favorite tracks for this moment. And it's a shame that this track was only used for Bora and Upa, two very minor characters appearing only in one arc, so we don't get to hear that track outside of Bora and Upa, which I feel is a great loss considering the fact that I really enjoyed this track. But the music isn't the only thing that's going for this moment. The villain Tao Pai Pai, or Mercenary Tao if you prefer the English dub, is also the first villain which is actually pretty damn serious and does something pretty villainous, which is kill a character in a pretty brutal fashion. But one of the very things that really makes me like this moment is that this is one of the very first times we see Goku deal with a sense of death. This is really the very first time, and I always love the scene where Upa's just done burying his father and Goku is just looking at him, this lost little boy who lost his guide, who was his father, through the wilderness. Now he's all alone with no protection, no nothing. And Goku, I think, truly feeling disappointed at himself that he actually let these certain events happen, that he let this little boy's father die like that. And because Goku has a very strong sense of justice, and this was one of the very first times he could not fulfill it, therefore seeming to be a bit angry at himself. Number 3. Number 3. The death of Krillin. The death of Krillin definitely was a surprising event. One minute everyone's celebrating, the next someone's dead. This was the opening act for the Demon King Piccolo arc, and what a first act it was. A lot of people know that Dragon Ball went through some major changes as the years went by. And a lot of people all say that a lot of these changes were cemented in the Demon King Piccolo arc, and they would be right. But even more so than just the entire arc is this very moment, because this very moment quite literally set the motion in events that will change Dragon Ball as a series for the rest of its continuation. This was the first death of a major character. Now, we've had deaths in the past like Bora, but this was definitely a much different, considering the fact that this was actually someone Goku actually knew. And although Goku has dealt with death before, it was with people that he really hadn't known yet he was fighting against, or people he wasn't really acquainted with. This is the first time we get to see how Goku handles death of a close friend. And as we see the way he deals with his best friend's death, although he is shocked at first, he quickly then goes into a righteous rage and quickly wants to pursue Krillin's killer without asking any questions or without getting any other information. He is purely acting on emotion at that point. His behavior is actually a little similar to the way his son will be, Gohan, when he reacts to extremely stressful situations. Here we are at number 2.
If there's a God, he must be good for letting me live long enough to see this day. How great! This is a dream come true to see you beaten by a Saiyan! Kakarot, listen to me. Don't be so soft. There's no stinking honor in any of this. It's just a game. Play to win. There are no rules. Takes. Stop him. Please.
Number 2. The death of Vegeta. I have already said that Frieza is the most inhumane and cruel villain in all of Dragon Ball. Well, this moment only cements that even more, because unlike spot number 5, he is hands-on in this. He does not order any henchmen to do his dirty work. And on top of that, he is doing this to another character who is also pretty damn cruel and also coincidentally did some pretty cruel things to the Namekians, Vegeta. As I said before, Vegeta can be a scumbag, and at this point in the series, Vegeta is not a very sympathetic character, but you definitely feel sympathetic towards him when you meet the monster that is Frieza. The sheer brutality of Frieza absolutely surpasses Vegeta, but also in the way Frieza delights in causing pain to others also just absolutely makes you feel sympathetic towards Vegeta, even though this guy isn't even the best of characters. Of course, what really makes it on the list for me is the speech Vegeta gives to Goku. I love the part when Vegeta starts telling Goku to stop reciting his soft crap, telling Goku that he's too soft-hearted and that would be an easy thing for Frieza to exploit. This is really the first time you see Vegeta's humanity. You see him as a person that might not be that bad. Although that is still pretty iffy considering the fact that he murdered his own partner Nappa, and he has also done some pretty cruel things throughout his life, so he's not fully redempted, but as a sad moment, it stands pretty damn firm. This is it. Number 1. Next, the number 1 saddest moment in Dragon Ball. And it is the history of Trunks. Yes, I know it's just a TV special and not part of the main Dragon Ball series, but in all honesty, if I was looking for the top 10 saddest moments in all of Dragon Ball, then this would have to be it. But this is still top 10 moments, so if I had to pick one moment, of course it's the obvious one. It would definitely have to be the emotional low of the entire thing, which would be the death of Gohan. The way I feel about this moment is actually very similar to the way I feel about number 4, the death of Bora. Trunks playing the role of Upa and Gohan playing the role of Bora. But the major difference is that unlike those two characters from earlier in the series, these are actually characters that are a lot more fleshed out and developed. Not to mention that History of Trunks does paint this extremely horrific future, but for the thing that really makes it on this list is the loss of Trunks' master, his father/role model. Gohan definitely was more than just a master or some sort of role model that Trunks looked up to. He was a lot of things in one. Considering the fact that the world was going to hell, Gohan definitely helped Trunks navigate this tyrannical world. Not just physically, emotionally too. One thing I really do like about this is that throughout the whole special, Gohan's trying to teach Trunks how to transform into a Super Saiyan. And oh boy, does Gohan help out, but probably not in the way anyone intended. This is what makes it for me. Trunks not only cared about Gohan, but he really did need him, especially in that hellish world. He was his physical, emotional guide. And when he finally lost him, Trunks would have to face this world pretty much on his own. And definitely because he is one of these extremely powerful beings, feel the burden of protecting everyone on his own as well, like Gohan did. But Gohan didn't leave Trunks empty-handed. When he died, he still gave Trunks that transformation of the Super Saiyan.
Well guys, that's the entire list. Like I said before, there was a lot of death of characters on this list, but that was the nature of Dragon Ball. Trust me, I was aware of it, and I actually tried to go and try to find some other moments, but there really just wasn't any other moments outside of death of characters. But oh well, that's the nature of Dragon Ball. What can you do? Anyway, I hope that you agreed with some of my points, and maybe some of your saddest moments were on this list. If a sad moment wasn't on this list that you thought would have been, maybe you can tell me in the comments. But, as always guys, I'm Blackenfist, and I'm out.